In a future where everyone is engineered to be happy and society runs on control and pleasure, Brave New World takes a deep dive into what happens when perfection starts to crack. It's a world without pain, without family, and without freedom. At least, that's what they want everyone to believe. But when curiosity and emotion begin to stir, the illusion of paradise starts falling apart. Beneath all the bright lights and calm smiles lies a darker truth, one that questions what it really means to be human in a world that's forgotten how to feel. Lenina, a Beta Plus hatchery worker, is busy working on a project when her name echoes through the speakers. She ignores it at first, but after hearing it again, she finally decides to go. On her way, she grabs a pill from a dispenser and swallows it. Following orders, she visits Bernard, an Alpha Plus who oversees social behavior. He questions her about her relationship with Henry, another Alpha Plus from her department. Lenina denies anything romantic, but Bernard pulls up video proof showing otherwise. He offers her a yellow pill, but she refuses. Bernard reminds her that as a beta, she shouldn't be with someone of higher rank. Instead, she asks for something else and gets an orange pill. Leaving the office, Lenina spots Henry walking with another woman. They exchange a silent look but don't speak. Hoping the pill will calm her emotions, she takes it and continues. Meanwhile, the director, Bernard's superior, visits him to report an incident in one of the work sectors. Back at her station, Lenina's friend Franny teases her about Henry, unaware of how uneasy she feels. The story gives a glimpse of New London, a tightly controlled society where a network called Indra connects everyone's thoughts and emotions, ensuring harmony through constant regulation. Outside the city lies the Savage Lands, a territory just an 11-minute rocket ride away, where people live freely and perform primitive shows for visitors from New London. Bernard travels there to investigate the reported incident. A Gamma supervisor tells him that one of the Epsilons, the lowest class of workers, has died. Bernard orders the others, all named Jack, to move away from the body. One disobeys, so Bernard gives him Soma, a calming drug that wipes away fear. Examining the body, Bernard realizes the worker might have jumped. To test his theory, he drops a grapefruit from the balcony and watches it burst on the ground. When he questions one of the Jacks, the man admits the victim was his friend. The image disturbs Bernard, and when he tries to take Soma himself, he discovers he's out. Later, Bernard visits Helm, a creative alpha who designs pleasure experiences. He tells her about the death, but she refuses to believe it. Suicide doesn't exist in their world. Bernard says there's a kind of pain Soma can't fix, though Helm brushes it off and invites him to her table at the pleasure garden to unwind. Meanwhile, Lenina joins Franny to choose digital outfits before heading to the pleasure garden too. There, they run into Henry and his friend Damon. Franny dances with Henry while Lenina spends time with Damon. Clearly distracted, Bernard lounges nearby until two strangers approach him, getting too close. Flustered, he quickly walks off while Lenina quietly watches him leave. Far from New London, in the Savage Lands, John works as a mechanic and performer in their stage shows. He chats with Madison, a fellow performer, who removes a fake pregnancy prop from one of their acts. John wants to spend time with her, but she says she had a meeting with her group. A few others confront John for ruining the last performance, warning that if audiences stop coming, they'll lose their only income. Later, John visits a small music shop where the owner gives him a mysterious recording and a package for his mother, Linda. At home, Linda sits by the window, lost in her thoughts. She and John argue before sharing dinner. She tells him he reminds her of someone, but he doesn't want to hear it. That night, he carries her to bed, unaware that trouble is coming. Suddenly, a woman named Sheila and her group kidnap him. They drag him to a pit filled with bullets, claiming he's destined to bring change. Sheila says the people of New London feel nothing and believe in nothing, asking if John is truly free. Back in the city, C-Jack 60, one of the Epsilons, notices another Jack missing and finds his bed in disarray. Bernard, meanwhile, gets scolded by the director for going offline too often. The director says privacy is dangerous and sends Bernard to the Savage Lands for a vacation. John later wakes up furious at Madison for not helping him. She insists they're giving him a chance to do something important and warns him to be grateful, or else. Before leaving, she hands him a single bullet. Lenina visits Bernard again, saying Soma didn't help her feel better. She calls him a hypocrite. Bernard admits he feels disconnected from everyone, that even intimacy feels fake, and that he doesn't know who he's supposed to be. Lenina says Henry once let her see inside him. When Bernard asks if she can see inside him, she quietly says nothing. Somewhere far away, John sits alone, drinking in silence. Mustafa Mond, one of New London's top leaders, reviews the mysterious death of the worker who recently jumped to his death. Watching the footage with the director, she notices another worker, C-Jack 60, touching the body and seeming to experience something deep and strange. The director is unsettled, saying he's never seen anyone commune with Indra, the system that connects every mind in New London. He asks what it feels like, but Mond doesn't answer. Instead, she requests to speak with the Epsilon directly, and the director reluctantly agrees. Elsewhere, Lenina chats with her friend friend Franny as they watch a group of children playing. They remark that the kids will never know things like violence or hate, luxuries of their engineered world. Over the loudspeaker, Lenina's name is called. Franny brings up the rumors about Bernard, saying people think his embryo was mishandled and that he doesn't deserve to be an Alpha Plus. Lenina defends him, then heads off to meet him. Bernard stands by a railing, staring into the distance when Lenina joins him. They're about to head out together on a trip to the Savage Lands, a place outside New London where people still live like the old world. On their way, a young alpha sneers at Lenina for being a beta, but they ignore him. Once aboard, Bernard explains that all alphas visit the Savage Lands at some point to see what chaos looks like and to appreciate the order back home. Meanwhile, in the Savage Lands, John watches TV as a cheesy ad for a gadget called Thanks Buddy plays, promising to help locals track down people who owe them money. His mother, Linda, shuts off the screen. She's restless and talks about leaving, but John warns that they won't survive out there. He reminds her that his father is gone and isn't coming back. Linda ignores him, turning to her drink, while John silently worries about her. Soon, Bernard and Lenina arrive at the Excelsior, a luxury resort built for visitors. The staff gives them pins and guidebooks for the attractions: the House of Want, House of Futility, House of Consequence, and House of Monogamy. The receptionist recommends skipping the last two. Apparently, they can be a little intense. Lenina flips through the guidebook, fascinated by the idea of saving oneself for marriage, a completely foreign concept to her. They enter their room, which overlooks the resort's conjugal pool filled with couples. Bernard awkwardly says he wanted a room on the other side. He admits that when he visited before, things felt different. People seemed kinder. The thought of love and patience seems strange but beautiful to Lenina. They start to kiss and nearly go further, but stop, deciding to save themselves for their imaginary wedding night. Back in New London, Mond and the director discuss C-Jack 60, who has been acting differently since the incident. Mond wonders if the worker somehow changed, if he's no longer truly an Epsilon. She spots him on a monitor and calls him over. Jack 60 admits that something happened when he touched his fallen coworker. He says he felt him, his emotions, his pain, and that it changed him. He also confesses that the Soma man touched him too, hinting at something beyond their usual understanding. Meanwhile, Bernard and Lenina start their guided tour of the Savage Lands. Back at the outpost, John helps Madison, a performer and friend, strap on a fake pregnancy suit for their next act. When she leaves, Kavile, another performer, apologizes for being harsh earlier, explaining that he's just a perfectionist. On the tour, Bernard and Lenina observe a strange performance about family. They watch in confusion as a pregnant woman acts out childbirth while a crowd cheers. A young alpha tries to shove Lenina to take her seat, but Bernard stands his ground. The group then heads to the House of Want, where chaos reigns. It's like a real-life version of Black Friday, with people fighting over products. Afterward, they visit the House of Monogamy, where couples reenact old-fashioned marriage vows. There, Bernard is approached by a man named Cortez, who claims to know him, though Bernard doesn't remember. Lenina notices a dead bird nearby and gently picks it up, catching the attention of John, who watches her from a distance. Moments later, everything erupts into violence. The performers' guns, once thought to fire blanks, turn out to be real. Kavile and the others open fire on the tourists. Bernard and Lenina duck for cover, realizing the attack is real. Bernard gets hit, forcing Lenina to drag him away to safety. As smoke fills the air, John stares at the aftermath in shock. Sheila, a ruthless leader in the Savage Lands, approaches and tells him that he doesn't wash cars anymore, that his role is changing. She says the people they killed weren't really alive anyway, implying they were just puppets of the system. Madison rushes in, reporting that 2 people are missing. Sheila immediately orders her group to find them. Lenina and Bernard manage to reach a rundown motel. They hide in one of the rooms as footsteps approach outside. The doorknob rattles. Someone's trying to get in. Suddenly, the door bursts open, and John rushes inside. He grabs Lenina, covers her mouth, and whispers for her to stay quiet as danger looms just outside. Sometime later, John and Lenina rush to help Bernard, who's been shot. John shouts for his mother, Linda, asking her to come quickly. Linda, though clearly irritated, takes charge and starts digging the bullet out of Bernard's shoulder while John panics about their vehicle's dead battery. He warns that Sheila's people are coming and they'll all be killed, but Linda silences him and focuses on saving Bernard. Once the bullet's out, she reminds John there's a spare battery hidden in the crawlspace, so he scrambles to get it. Moments later, Madison, one of Sheila's followers, shows up outside. John hurriedly hides Lenina and Bernard while trying to distract her. Madison enters, suspicious and armed, and soon hears the others trying to stay quiet. When she points her gun at John, Linda sneaks up from behind and takes her out. It's a brutal but desperate move, and Linda wastes no time ordering everyone to pack up and go. She grabs a few pills and leads them out into the burning chaos outside. The nearby town is in ruins, with smoke rising from fires started by Sheila's violent cult. Linda flirts with the store owner to convince him to hide them inside. Though uneasy, he eventually lets them in. As Bernard rests, Linda tends to his wound while John and Lenina talk about how different their worlds are. Lenina admits she can't understand the violence here. People act selfishly and full of fear, unlike the controlled calm of New London. In another room, Bernard screams as Linda and John cauterize his wound. He threatens to report them for burning him, but his fear only shows how fragile he's become. Meanwhile, Linda explains to Lenina what it means to live without Soma, the happiness drug everyone in New London depends on. She says the hardest part of life is learning to survive without it. Lenina, confused and emotional, admits that in her world, everyone stays with their assigned partner, never feeling abandoned. Bernard continues to panic, believing they'll all die there. He blurts out that if they survive, he'll be monogamous, something unheard of in their society. Outside, John notices Sheila's group spreading through the streets, searching for them. Lenina asks Bernard to help them escape through the barrier, and he insists he can. Just then, the store owner's wife returns, forcing them to hide again. Sheila's people find the couple, killing them both as John and the others sneak out the back. Their escape turns into a chase when a man on a motorcycle spots them, but John manages to take him down. Before long, they're stopped by a roadblock filled with Sheila's followers. John gets out of the car and disappears into the woods, with Linda following close behind. Inside the car, Bernard becomes restless and takes the driver's seat, angry that Lenina took his last Soma pill. She tries to calm him, promising they'll get more soon. Linda catches up to John, revealing she used to be a beta plus, just like Lenina. She admits she's been taking the same drugs from New London, saying it's the only way she can cope. John argues that she doesn't understand his pain, but she begs him not to make her choose between him and survival. Meanwhile, Bernard loses control of the car, nearly crashing it before stopping just in time. Linda and John rush back to help, and the group flees again as bullets fly through the trees. They run toward the barrier that separates their worlds. Linda and John get trapped outside while Sheila appears, gun in hand. She yells that her people won't be slaves for New London's entertainment anymore and warns that only death waits beyond the barrier. As Bernard and Lenina cross to safety, John watches in horror as Linda is shot. Later, back in New London, Bernard collects the group's belongings as evidence. His shoulder is healed, and he hands Lenina a refilled Soma dispenser. She asks what to do next, and he quietly says they'll just go back to normal. Lenina asks what Sheila told him, but Bernard lies, claiming she said not to return. Alone in her room, Lenina clutches John's clothes. Meanwhile, John wakes up in a strange facility, calling out for his mother. Mustafa Mond watches as the director claims Linda's gone and that savages can't handle loss. John smashes a window and demands answers. Mond appears, telling him he's home now. A door opens, and John steps through, staring in awe at New London for the first time. John is finally allowed to see his mother's body, while Mond and the director discuss what to do with him. Bernard, now promoted to counselor, is assigned to handle John's integration into New London. The director, who once served as warden of the Savage Lands, seems uneasy about the situation. When Bernard tries talking to John, the young man stays silent and distant, uninterested in anything he has to say. Bernard insists it's his duty to help him adjust, though John clearly doesn't want his help. Later, John changes into New London clothes and joins Bernard, still refusing to speak. He's terrified of the lift, and when Bernard offers him Soma, the emotion-suppressing drug, John refuses. Meanwhile, Lenina lies in bed watching a commercial about the new Savage Lands. Her friend Franny drops by, curious about Lenina's trip and trying to get intimate, but Lenina isn't in the mood. Elsewhere, John watches a training video explaining how the optic interface will connect him to Indra, the system that links everyone's thoughts and emotions. It promises to let others experience life through his eyes, turning him into a kind of celebrity. Beta technician Julian arrives to measure John's eyes, calling him an alpha exotic. Bernard is surprised by this classification. When Julian tries inserting the device, John panics, knocks it away, and blinds him before running off. Bernard's attempts to brag about his accomplishments are cut short when he learns John has escaped. While the city searches, Franny visits Lenina again, talking about correction sessions. When she touches Lenina, something snaps. Lenina slaps her hand away, then apologizes, realizing how shaken she's become since returning from the Savage Lands. Down below, John hides in the worker level and meets C-Jack-60, an Epsilon who shows him kindness by sharing his food. At the same time, Bernard is scolded by the director, who tells him he never should have brought John back. The director begins tracking John's location, while Bernard investigates something else. Lenina goes back to her lab and quietly tampers with one of the materials used to create alphas, causing it to glow red. Panicking, she flees the room as others stare. In the lower levels, John encounters the director, who tries to convince him they want the same thing. He promises safety and a better life, but John recognizes him as the man who abandoned his mother in the Savage Lands. John confronts him, accusing him of leaving them behind after getting his mother pregnant. The director insists he didn't know she was expecting and reminds John that there are no mothers in New London. Their argument turns violent, and during the struggle, the director falls to to his death. Horrified, John runs away. Bernard soon pieces things together, realizing that John's optic interface data perfectly matches the director's, confirming they're related. Henry, another alpha, warns Bernard to keep it quiet. Meanwhile, John flees from curious citizens who chase him into a pleasure hall filled with people lost in indulgence. Overwhelmed, he climbs up to escape the chaos. Bernard arrives and helps him down, gently guiding him away. Lenina, desperate for comfort, turns to Henry, asking him to act like he used to before everything changed. He agrees, and they share a quiet moment together. Later, John finally sits beside his mother's body while Bernard speaks with Mond. She believes both men are being tested. Bernard must help John adapt and bring him into their social system. When Bernard learns of the director's death, Mond tells him this too is part of the test, and that his role has now become more important. In the end, Bernard and John leave together. This time, when Bernard offers him Soma, John accepts it. Jack-60 looks out his window, mirroring the other Jacks doing the same across the city. Holding a Soma pill in his hand, he draws a sad face on the glass, clearly struggling with his emotions. Somewhere else, Mustafa Mond senses this connection and quietly asks for someone to talk to. After the opening, Lenina is with Henry, but their time together feels strained afterward. She tries to talk about parties, costumes, and their friend Helm, but Henry insists that as an alpha, he's meant to lead, not lose control. Lenina challenges that idea, saying she liked not knowing what would happen. When Henry grabs her arm and apologizes, she tells him there are other ways to live. He coldly ends things, telling her they won't see each other again. Meanwhile, Bernard meets with Mond to discuss how John, the outsider from the Savage Lands, is adjusting to life in New London. Bernard claims things are going fine, but Mond doesn't buy it. She questions how John can ever fit in if no one interacts with him. Bernard admits John's having trouble adapting and hints that the director might even be John's father. Mond tells him to keep that secret and reminds Bernard his job is to assimilate, not protect. Later, John watches children play in a conditioning center. When one of their blocks rolls to his feet, he puts it back in its place, catching Bernard's attention. Bernard tells John he can't stay isolated forever and encourages him to wear a contact lens that shows everyone's social level. John refuses, saying he doesn't need it to see how things work. Lenina arrives and overhears, but runs off when another woman teases that John might like her. Lenina meets her friend Franny, who's curious about the rumors involving John. Lenina says she doesn't have to share everything, that some parts of her belong only to herself. Franny calls her different, which makes Lenina pause. Maybe she is. They later play a virtual game together, but Lenina grows frustrated, feeling like she always comes second. Franny ends up taking Soma to calm down after Lenina leaves. Elsewhere, John meets a group of people Helm has been working with, citizens who've been cast aside. Bernard comforts Helm by giving her Soma and tells her that Mond wants John to become part of society. John, meanwhile, questions why people are forced into strict roles. Helm becomes intrigued by his boldness and decides to invite him to her party. Bernard gives John a blue Soma and tells him to embrace this new world. Lenina breaks down alone, finally taking Soma before getting dressed to go out. At the party, John wears a black suit made by a local worker, and Bernard nervously tags along. Helm tells John that from above, he can see the design of everything, how Indra, the system, connects it all. John's unimpressed, but she's fascinated by him. As the night continues, tensions rise. Bernard ends up punching Henry after John eggs him on, shocking everyone. Outside, Bernard and Lenina sit quietly, holding hands as a dazzling pleasure bomb lights up the sky, a strange beauty unfolding in a world that's starting to crack. Bernard talks with Helm about Marco and his flashy movie trailer that celebrates the punch. Helm pretends to admire it until Marco leaves, then mocks him for being shallow. Bernard explains that John isn't used to this much attention and goes to check on him. Nearby, a crowd surrounds John, begging for stories about the Savage Lands. When Bernard pulls him aside, John confesses he's lost. People want him to play the violent outsider. Bernard urges him to just give them what they want and be whoever he chooses to be. So John launches into a wild story, repeating it for every eager listener. His sudden fame turns him into a public sensation, but the constant attention quickly wears him down. Later, John spends time with Bernard, who tries to lift his spirits by suggesting they go out. John's too drained to care. Bernard mentions that Henry invited them to an event, but John's confused since Bernard can't stand Henry. On the train, John admits he's tired of retelling the same story, though he did enjoy the parties. Bernard tells him these trends never last forever, and seems uneasy when John brings up Lenina. To calm himself, Bernard quietly takes a Soma pill. Meanwhile, Mustafa Mond meets with Jack-60, who's been relaxing away from the city. He jokes that the other Jacks are off being annoying, then notices something's bothering her. Mond reveals that Indra, the system that runs their world, is acting up again, and this time the problem is a man. Elsewhere, John runs into Lenina by chance. She's startled since random encounters don't happen in New London. As they walk, they talk about the party she left early. Lenina admits she felt sad there and thought seeing John would remind her who she's supposed to be. When John holds her hand hand and asks if she feels the vibration. She insists it's just the train. He explains that Indra doesn't see him because he doesn't wear the tracking optic. Encouraged by him, Lenina removes hers and joins him on the train, watching the world outside for the first time. John shows her a small trick, pinching a nerve in her hand to calm down, something he used to do for his mother. While Bernard stresses about John's disappearance, John and Lenina continue bonding. John sympathizes with the lower-class workers and tells her he used to do the same kind of chores. Lenina realizes she's missed so much of life while following the rules. Bernard, now bitter, gives a speech at Henry's event about his time in the Savage Lands, but no one seems to care. Back underground, Mon talks with CJack-60 about Indra's endless cycles of control and evolution. She reveals that the system is dying, and maybe she is too. Meanwhile, John and Lenina escape to a secluded place, pretending they live off the land together. They share an intimate moment before John heads home, only to be confronted by Bernard, who's furious about being abandoned. Their argument turns violent as Helm and others watch remotely. When it's over, John collapses in tears. While elsewhere, Mon struggles for her life, sinking deeper as her connection to Indra fades away. John spends time with Lenina, sharing a story about hunting and life back in the Savage Lands. She gives back his headset, saying she waited for the right moment, and John confesses that he loves her. Lenina says it back, and they share a brief kiss before she leaves for work. Outside, she receives her optic interface from Gary and steps into the rain, enjoying the feeling of it on her skin, something few in New London ever experience. Meanwhile, John takes a quiet walk and listens to music. When he returns, Gary tells him that Bernard is waiting. Bernard questions where he's been, and John plays the song for him. Bernard dislikes the lyrics, calling them distracting, but invites John to one last party hosted by the arch songster, the leader of New London's entertainment world. Though tired of the social scene, John reluctantly agrees but refuses to wear the optic interface. Elsewhere, Mustafa Mond wakes up in an underground tunnel and discovers an old building once owned by Soma Pharmaceuticals. Inside, she explores dusty halls, finding ads and early prototypes of the optic devices. She's soon joined by Jane, an AI figure who reveals that her purpose was to maintain stability, controlling human emotion through drugs and pleasure. Mond insists the world isn't a simulation, but Jane argues that happiness itself is a flaw that needs correction. Shocked, Mond uncovers records of suicides tied to these systems, realizing the cost of perfection. At the party, Bernard explains to John that it's a frolic. The alphas hunt for betas wearing masks. John isn't impressed. The arch songster introduces himself as the creator of all the city's music, but John doesn't care for him either. Helm Watson, who edits and manipulates emotions for art, approaches John and admits she doesn't belong there either. She says he's not a toy and deserves better than to be used for amusement. Before they can talk more, Bernard interrupts as the game begins. The betas scatter and the alphas chase them for fun, but John refuses to participate. He tries explaining loyalty and love to Bernard, who doesn't understand. Later, John stands under the shower, disturbed by memories of Lenina being with someone else. When she joins him, he can't hide his jealousy. He begs her to stop seeing others, but she fears Indra, the system that monitors everyone, will punish her. Bernard, meanwhile, is floating through the halls on Soma. He later visits Lenina to check on her adjustment and awkwardly asks her out, claiming he wants to date like John described. She hesitantly agrees. On their date, Bernard tries to connect, but Lenina's mind drifts to John. Elsewhere, John's frustration boils over. At a pub, he argues with the staff and shatters a glass, ranting that everyone in New London is drugged and hollow. His anger spreads, and soon others start smashing glasses too. That night, Bernard lashes out at Lenina, forcing her to leave in tears, while John seeks meaning in his chaos. He visits Helm, asking if she can truly give and remove emotions. She says she can. All he has to do is connect. As Mon tells Henry that she no longer controls anything, and that Indra runs the world, John finally puts the optic interface into his eye. The system accepts the connection, and a chilling truth echoes in his mind. The directive is death. Helm, who works with John, watches his memories and tries to help him forget his pain. When she fails, she admits she can only cover the emotions, not erase them. They watch one of John's memories, where the old director falls to his death. Helm asks what really happened, but John avoids the question and pulls out his optic device. As he steps into the hallway, his vision twists, and he starts seeing strange things. Elsewhere, Lenina talks to her friend Franny about a man named Justin, who's been sent to reconditioning for being too obsessive. Lenina wonders what it's like to be banished, but Franny is terrified of even thinking about it. They soon see footage of John and think he's lost his mind. Bernard tries to visit John, but instead meets Gary, John's gamma assistant. Bernard presses Gary about John's private life, especially if he's been with Lenina. Gary refuses at first, but finally blurts out that Lenina visits John every night. When John walks out from the shower, Gary bolts. Bernard tells John he might need a new gamma, but John brushes it off. Bernard tries to give him back the optic, saying it lets him see others, but John doesn't want it. Bernard then brags about going on a date with Lenina and implies they slept together, clearly trying to get a reaction. Later, Franny stops Lenina outside the hatchery, warning her to stay away from John and to trust Indra. the system that controls their society. Lenina isn't so sure anymore. John takes a walk and sits on a bench, joined by C-Jack-60, a low-ranking worker who says they aren't allowed to sit there. John encourages him to break the rule, and soon more Epsilons gather around. John talks about how unfair things are, how the higher-ups never suffer, and how the world feels upside down. He tells them to look back at those watching from above, and they do. Meanwhile, Helm replays John's memories and starts crying. Henry, still haunted by his talk with Mond, gets pressured by Bernard to exile John. Henry refuses, saying the people need distractions, even dangerous ones. He mentions the old director's rocket still sitting in the Savage Lands, suggesting there's a way out. Back in his room, John can't find Gary. Lenina tries to reach him through her optic but gets no response. Later, she and Franny go out, and Lenina starts questioning the system again. When others pressure her into joining their usual fun, she refuses and walks away, saying, it's her body. Bernard visits Helm, demanding access to John's memories. When she refuses, he knocks her down and takes them anyway, seeing the director's death for himself. Lenina finally visits John and they talk about leaving together, but things turn tense when John admits he saw her through the optic. Lenina tries to go and he grabs her arm before letting her leave. Soon after, Bernard convinces Henry that John is dangerous and must be removed. When they send Epsilons to arrest him, they instead protect John and walk him away peacefully. The next morning, Henry finds blood near the buses and realizes the Epsilons have taken matters into their own hands. Bernard and Mond stand over Henry's body, stunned by what's happened. Bernard wipes a tear from his cheek and blames himself for Henry's death, while Mond quietly admits she's at fault too. She let the Savage into New London. Both realize things have gone too far and agree that John must be stopped before their perfect society collapses completely. After their grim talk, Bernard steps into Henry's former position as director, trying to restore order as everything begins to fall apart. At the hatchery, Lenina notices that her friend Franny is missing. The others whisper that Franny was taken for reconditioning because she tried to be like Lenina, curious, emotional, and rebellious. Their words push Lenina over the edge. She angrily rips the optic interface out of her eye and smashes it under her heel, shocking everyone around her. Bernard, now the new director, gets congratulated by his co-workers while secretly monitoring Lenina. When he finds out she destroyed her optic, he tries to reach her. When they meet, he offers her a replacement, but she refuses. Lenina accuses Bernard of exposing John's private memories to the public, turning him into a spectacle. Bernard defends himself, insisting John has become dangerous and needs to be contained before he causes more chaos. Meanwhile, John and C-Jack-60 discover a strange piece of metal in the ruins. John tells Jack that New London is poisoned, a world built on control and lies. He rallies the Epsilons, saying they don't need Soma or orders from above. No one should be above or below, he tells them. Moved by his words, the Epsilons throw away their Soma dispensers, refusing to stay drugged and obedient. Elsewhere, Bernard supervises Franny's reconditioning. She claims to feel realigned and loyal again, but her words sound mechanical. She insists the social body must be purified and is handed a stun weapon. Her first assignment is clear: find Lenina and bring her in. Lenina, unaware of this, searches for John but only finds Gary, who refuses to tell her where he went. She confides that she plans to leave New London entirely. Meanwhile, Helm speaks to Mond about the recordings of John's memories. She pauses one image showing a woman named Jane who looks exactly like Mond. Helm says the memory feels like a child looking at its mother. Mond looks shaken and sends Helm away, only for Jane herself to appear moments later. Jane, seemingly an AI, claims the system is collapsing and nothing can stop it now. Mond warns her that ending the simulation will erase her, but Jane doesn't care. Back in New London, the hatchery grinds to a halt as supplies stop arriving. Gary tells John that Lenina is planning to leave. Across the city, chaos spreads as Soma supplies run out. Bernard tries to calm the citizens but secretly hides his own stash. Meanwhile, John and the Epsilons begin smashing Soma machines. The rebellion has started. Lenina is ambushed by Franny, who tries to tase her, but Lenina talks her down. Franny's conditioning breaks and she runs away in tears, realizing she doesn't want to hurt her friend. C-Jack-60 finds Bernard and warns him to hide if he wants to survive. Later, he encounters Mond, who leads him underground. Using his thumbprint, Jack opens a locked chamber revealing rows of lifeless bodies, the original creators of New London, kept alive by machines. Mond explains that Indra, the AI, built their world to be perfect, but perfection came at the cost of freedom. Together, she and Jack shut down the system, deactivating Indra and ending the illusion. Reality begins collapsing. Bernard experiences strange visions of another world before waking beside Helm. She tells him she saw a vision of him leading survivors. Together, they board a shuttle and escape to the Savage Lands. There, they meet Sheila, who greets them with relief. Bernard gives her a mysterious box, and the group drives away, though Bernard's optic interface still glows faintly in his eye. Back in the ruins of New London, John wanders through the aftermath of destruction. He finds Lenina sitting quietly beside Mond. Lenina asks why why she was spared, and Mon tells her she's different, that the story isn't over because Indra still exists somewhere. Time passes. John now lives alone in a small cabin by the water, fishing and living in silence. Inside, Lenina is there waiting for him, smiling. But as he looks closer, her image begins to flicker and glitch, revealing that she isn't really there. John has been replaying memories, trapped in a world that no longer exists, holding on to the only piece of her he has left. And that's how Brave New World wraps up, not with peace or perfection, but with the haunting reminder that even in a world designed to eliminate chaos, human nature always finds a way to break through. It's tragic, thought-provoking, and a little unsettling, just the right mix for a dystopian story. In the end, maybe perfection was never the goal. Maybe it's the flaws that make us real. See you in the next recap.